Well, for reaction to this, I'm now joined by the former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert. Sir, thank you for making time to speak to us again. And last time we spoke, you and I, you called Netanyahu's war on Hamas a total failure. Since then, another front, if you like, has opened up from Israel into Lebanon with military action over Lebanon. Where are your thoughts on things now?
Well, Rosanna, I'm very happy to speak with you again. I'm not certain that I call the war against Hamas as a total failure. I said actually then, and I think now, that we have achieved what we set for in the first place, which is to try and break down the Hamas military capacity. And at this time, what we need is to end the war in order to bring back all the hostages. This is what we need to do. And this is what I think is the first priority of Israel. As for the war in Lebanon, I think also we had very important achievements. Let's not forget that Hezbollah started the war against Israel without any provocations, without any reason, except that they say that they wanted to assist Hamas. And therefore, they started the attack against Israel on the 8th of October 2023. I think that today already Hezbollah has learned something about the pains of the war against Israel. I can't say that Nasrallah can understand it because he's no more with us. But had he been smarter, he wouldn't have started it. As he wouldn't have started the war in 2006, as he himself said then, after the war, that had he known of what the Israeli reaction will be, he would have never started it. So right now, what we have is the war in Gaza should be stopped right now, and the return of the hostages should be accomplished. In the north, I think that we should not further the ground operation because we need to reach an agreement between Israel and Lebanon so that the war will end diplomatically. The way to do it is to proceed with an understanding about the outstanding disputes we have with Lebanon about the borderline and the Sheba farms. This is something that I think can be reached. The Americans and the French are making exceptional efforts in order to bring an understanding about it. And I think that if the Lebanese government and Israel will reach an understanding about these outstanding issues, then we can disarm Hezbollah and move them away across the Litani River line, which will allow Israel to bring back the Israelis, 80,000 Israelis, which are now away from their homes, back to where they live.
But up to the point of further escalation, then, so you're saying, you know, it shouldn't be escalated more in Lebanon and people should get around a negotiating table. You do support what Netanyahu's cabinet and government have decided to do so far in trying to dismantle the Hezbollah command structure, but also sending ground troops and aerial bombardments over parts of Lebanon.
Look, I don't support the Israeli government, period, okay? And however, without whether, I support the government or not, when Hezbollah attacked Israel and on a daily basis, they are shooting 100 and 200 and 300 rockets against Israeli civilians, of course, the north part of the state of Israel, and they forced 80,000 Israelis to leave their homes, and they destroyed their homes as part of this attack. Israel has to respond, and Israel responded and in a very effective manner. And this was inevitable. But I don't want to expand this. Now, I don't think it should be expanded. I think we have to bring an end to this conflict. But of course, that means almost inevitably that Hezbollah will move out away from the borderline between Lebanon and Israel back into the Litani, across of the Litani River, and that will allow Israelis to return back to their homes, and this will bring an end to the war.
Would you have done something similar?
Had I been prime minister now, I definitely would do it. In 2006, we didn't need to do it because Hezbollah was anxious to leave the south immediately after the ceasefire, and they did it for a few years. They didn't dare then fight with Israel because they were devastated by the Israeli response. As, by the way, Nasrallah said at that time on the Lebanese television, he said, had he known before the Israeli reaction what it would be, he would have never started with the abduction of Israeli soldiers and the ambushing of Israeli vehicles that caused the confrontation in 2006. So I thought that as a result of what happened in 2006, that Hezbollah would have learned something. But as it turned out, on the 8th of October this year, they started again. And I think that they already regret what they have done, considering the serious pains that they have been through over the last few weeks in this confrontation between us and them. And therefore, it's time to stop it. And had I been prime minister now, I would have reached the agreement that is broken by America and France to compromise on the outstanding disputes we have on the borderline and conclude the war.
In terms of, you mentioned previously the government of Lebanon, and obviously that's fractured and complicated at the moment. They've got a caretaker prime minister. Reportedly, the US has tried to urge the election of the president in Lebanon. Do you think the election of a president in Lebanon would help at the moment in terms of diplomacy?
I hope so. You know, it's very hard. You know, the problem is that all of us are, you know, each one of us is trying to cope with the difficulties and complexities of the political system in his own country, and then he has to address himself to the complexities of politics in the neighboring country, and then in America, and then in perhaps other places. You know, I hope that the election of president, of a firm, strong leader that will take charge of Lebanon, is very important. And I hope that a leader of this caliber will be elected.
Let's talk about the might of Israel. You were talking there, the sort of reminder to Hezbollah, and they seem to forget, as you're saying, cyclically, just how powerful Israel can be in terms of the way it can respond to attacks. And there are concerns for those inside Israel at the moment that the missile defense system is running out of steam. The Pentagon saying today that advanced anti-missile systems are being sent by the US to begin arriving in Israel, but some military experts are saying that Israel's anti-missile systems are stretched at the moment. There's a shortage of interceptor missiles. The US can't continue supplying the Ukraine and Israel at the same rate, people are saying. Is that a concern to people in Israel at the moment, that the missile defense system isn't as strong as it normally is?
Look, I think there is a gross exaggeration about the difficulties in the Israeli defense system. I think the Israeli defense system, anti-missile system, has been exemplary, has been exceptionally successful. Let's face it. I mean, there was not any precedent, by the way, not even in the war between Russia and Ukraine, that in one shot, the 200 ballistic missiles were fired. Ballistic missiles with 1,000 kilos warheads for each were shot at one country, as was the case with Israel. So of course, there may have been few missiles that hit the targets without any major or significant damage, neither to man's life or to a human's life or to any of the facilities. So, but we definitely need assistance. America assisted us in the first place, together with Great Britain and France and other countries. And this is also quite expected. But I think that altogether there was approximately 500 missiles, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, drones that were shot at in two different periods successively against Israel, and not one person was hit and killed, that doesn't prove that Israel air defense system is not operating successfully. However, we definitely need help. We definitely need more support. Our resources are not unlimited, and it costs billions and billions of dollars. And thank God we have America that support us and provide us with the facilities. But even without this, Israel would have been in a good position to defend itself. With this, it's easier and it's cheaper, and these both are very significant for us.
In terms of the US assistance, I'll come back to that, but you mentioned two other countries there, the UK and France, both of whom have had, the support doesn't seem quite as steady and firm as it is from the US. There have been comments from French President Emmanuel Macron in recent months, and then in the UK today, news that the former UK Foreign Secretary, David Cameron, who was previously Prime Minister, he's been talking about the fact that he was working on a plan to sanction two Israeli ministers, Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, until there was a change of government in the UK. So that's going to put pressure on the current UK Foreign Secretary to maybe follow suit. Does that say to you that you're not getting as much support from the UK as you normally would?
I don't think that Ben-Gvir and Smotrich is a measure of the attitude towards the people of Israel and the state of Israel. As far as I'm concerned, I know David Cameron very well. And I think that he's a friend of Israel, and I think that the UK is a great friend of Israel. And I can understand why they can't tolerate Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and what they represent, because I don't need to be British not to like them and not to support them. So let's draw a distinction, which is, I think, quite obvious. Great Britain and President Macron are great friends of the state of Israel and the people of Israel. They are unhappy with certain expressions of the Israeli political system, particularly those that are made by Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and the Messianic groups, which are extremely right-wing, intolerant, and very provocative and very aggressive. And they express, as friends of the state of Israel, as friends of the people of Israel, their desire that these elements will not represent the state of Israel and the government of Israel. And I completely subscribe to this attitude, and therefore I have no complaints against David Cameron or President Macron for saying this. And I can understand that.
In terms of returning to the US support for Israel, we're going to see these THAAD anti-missile systems, and also there's discussion, we're actually running a story on the Al Arabiya website today, a military expert saying that US troops in Israel, whether or not that's a likelihood in coming days or weeks, that would change Iran's risk calculation, troops and the presence of the THAAD anti-missile system. Do you think that's a possibility, and do you agree that Iran would change their approach accordingly?
Well, I find it rather difficult to read all the peculiarities, I'd say, of the Iranians. What are they up for? But one thing becomes clear, and perhaps this is an important dimension that needs to be taken care of. If Iran is going to seriously engage in a military confrontation with Israel, they may find out that they face not only Israel, but they face the United States of America, and maybe also the American friends and the Israeli friends like Great Britain, France, and Germany. So this may have an important contribution to somehow relax the situation rather than provoke it. What it means in terms of Israel, that American soldiers will be stationed here to take part in the defense of the state of Israel. This is new. It has never happened before. But the whole setup has never been before, with Israel fighting in so many different fronts at the same time and for such a long time. And I think that this is significant. I think what it proves is that Israel needs its friends. And the lesson that I would draw, had I been in a position of power in Israel, is that I should respect and be more careful in my relations with America, much more than Netanyahu is showing on these days.
So, if you need a moment. But let's talk about Israel's anticipated still retaliation against Iran in any substantive way for the missile strikes, the huge missile barrage from Iran onto Israel a few days ago. And when questioned about it, the defense minister, the military in Israel just sort of saying, well, it will happen and, you know, Iran will get a surprise. And we've shown our might so far. We've shown our intelligence capabilities. We've shown our military might. Everyone is asking, what will it be like and when will it happen? I don't expect you to tell me that. I don't expect you know. Perhaps you do. But in terms of what you might expect to happen of that return retaliation from Israel to Iran, what do you think it could be?
I hope they will be measured, that it will be calculated, that it will not be provocative to the degree that it will force the Iranians to expand the military confrontation with Israel much more than it has already been. In other words, I think that we should listen to the advice of America about what not to attack. And I think that there are so many speeches and so many statements and such rhetoric, which is part of the present atmosphere that is not always very helpful. I would advise the Israeli government to do what needs to be done. Definitely, Iran needs to be punished. No one can attack another country with 200 ballistic missiles and expect not to be to have to face a counterattack. But we don't need to talk too much. We need to do what needs to be done, and we have to be very careful in doing it in such a way that it will not justify, from the point of view of Iran, expanding dramatically the military confrontation. We are not up for it. They are not up for it. It is not their interest. It is not our interest. And we hope that they will understand it. But definitely there will be an Israeli attack. And I hope that it will be very accurate, very effective, and very thoughtful.
Elsewhere in the show, we're going to be speaking to voices from inside Gaza about the situation there, particularly in the north around Jabalia, where Israel's military have given orders for people there to leave and move south, evacuation almost orders for around 400,000 people is estimated. We'll be going into that with those guests, but I want to talk to you about what Israel's been doing in Gaza over the last week, because there's been pictures and video from a strike on a hospital around a tent that shocked people around the world, people burning in flames. And then actually an article by the New York Times overnight as well, saying that an investigation they've done has shown that Israeli soldiers use Palestinians as human shields. In terms of the way that the Israeli military is being perceived for its actions in Gaza, there's been a lot over the last year, but those two events seem pretty critical. Your thoughts on how this is changing or not changing, this is the way this is impacting the world view of Israel?
Look, I must say that I'm not certain that all that is published in the magazines on a daily basis about what happens in Gaza is necessarily accurate to the dot. I don't know that we use Palestinians as a human shield. I know that Hamas has been using their own people as a human shield in all of their aggressive attacks against the state of Israel from day one. But in any event, I'm sure that you are aware that I said already 8 months ago, perhaps even more, that we should stop the war in Gaza. So that is a general answer, but I guess it answers all the different aspects of your question. I think that we have reached the point where a further military operation in Gaza is not helpful to achieve any of the important interests of the state of Israel. We have broken down the military capacity of Hamas. We have destroyed most of the tunnels. We have destroyed most of their weapons. They hardly have any more rockets that they can shoot at Israel in comparison to what they did at the beginning when they were shooting 2,000, 3,000 a day. Now there is one every few weeks and so on because everything was destroyed by us. Can we destroy more? Yes. Can this cause the death of more Israeli soldiers? Yes. Can it cause the death of more innocent Palestinians that live in those areas? Definitely yes. Can it expand and increase the humanitarian crisis in Gaza also? So there is no need. There is no objective that needs to be achieved that can be achieved by furthering the war in Gaza. And the worst, of course, is that we may lose all the hostages which are still alive, held by Hamas. So what I think we should do is we should stop the war now, immediately. We should bring back all the hostages in an agreement with Hamas. And we should pull out completely from Gaza, and there should be a deployment of Palestinian force with soldiers from moderate Arab countries, including, by the way, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and the Egypt and Bahrain, that will take place instead of Israel in order to prevent the return of Hamas into any dominant position in Gaza. And there should be an administrative mechanism that will start to take over the control of Gaza and the rebuilding of Gaza together with the international community so that there will be an appropriate solution for the suffering and the pains that so many hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are undergoing in Gaza as a result of a war that Hamas started against Israel.
I will agree with you that your position, your personal position and your political position has been clear on this, on Gaza. All the previous times we've spoken and you've been very public about that. So it's clearly different from that of the current government, of which of course you're the opposition. But what do you think the current government is doing in northern Gaza right now? Because clearly they're planning something quite big or protracted.
Well, as you said, my position is different. And I can only regret the fact that the government doesn't listen to the voice of reason and wisdom and is it does not understand that there is a limit to the use of power that can be of any help to the real interest of the state of Israel. We have to stop the war now, and we have to bring back the hostages, and we have to bring in a security force that will take care of Gaza and will prevent the furthering of any attempts by terrorist groups to attack the state of Israel. That's what we have to do. We have to cooperate with the Palestinian Authority. We have to cooperate with the moderate Arab countries. I think this is what the Americans are anxious to achieve. This is what the Europeans want to do. And we have to build up this joint effort that may bring an end to the war and to the suffering of so many Israelis and so many Palestinians.
Talk to me about the hostages, because obviously October 7th, we've just passed that anniversary, enormously painful for the families of those hostages still not returned and those who lost family members as hostages. Do you think there is still a deal to be done to return any hostages remaining?
Yes, I mean, there is a deal. And the deal is to end the war. I don't analyze or speculate about the chances on the basis of a certain respect for the human dimension in the heart of if yes, there is none. So the only way that it can be achieved is by ending the war, full stop, ending the war, and pulling out from Gaza. Of course, in return for the deployment of security force that will take over Gaza and prevent any attempt by the Hamas to rebuild itself. This is what I believe needs to be done and can be done, and this is the only way to bring back all the hostages. There is no other way, I'm afraid. I don't even try, to appeal to the human side of Sinwar. The guy who is ready to expose hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to the suffering that they have been through over the last year as a result of his attacks will definitely not feel any mercy for 100 Israelis. So the way to do it is to stop the war. I'm ready to stop the war. Bring them back. Pull out from Gaza. Life is long. And at this point, this is what we need to do.
Just finally, you mentioned that no one's listening to, as you put it, your voice of reason or wisdom on this. Is anybody listening? I don't mean that in a rude way, but is anybody listening to you at the moment? Do you think you've got an audience? Do you think you can apply pressure to the current government? Do you feel any public support?
Look, no one in the government listens to me. That I can guarantee you. I think that what I say, what I speak, the voice that I raise is listened to by millions of Israelis. I don't know to measure the numbers, but I believe that what I'm doing represents a large part of the Israeli population which is anxious to end this suffering of all those who suffer and to bring an end to the fighting and to start a process of healing the Israeli society, which is a very difficult, painful, and demanding process, but it has to be done. And therefore, I think that, as I said, I think that I do not speak for the government. I don't like this government. As far as I'm concerned, they should be out any moment. And there should be another government. Every other government will be better than this one. And I think that this reflects the attitude of a very large part of the Israeli population.
Former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you indeed. Take care.